Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News Channel. Hello, Maverick family. The war in Gaza, not over. That, according to Marco Rubio, who is doing the Sunday talk show circuit. We have his comments from NBC's Meet the Press tonight. The Sanchez stabbing, fight, assault. Some people jumping to conclusions, I guess, right off the bat. But we have now photos of the, I guess, possibly, likely the real victim, which is the person who was beaten in a surveillance video. So we have the first photos released of that, revealed, really. So we'll update you on that story. The Fox News sportscaster, analyst. And we might comment on the crazy ostrich story out in Edgewood, BC, maybe, because that circus continues out there tonight. We have other things to talk about as well, like, Trump preparing to send troops to Portland, federalizing National Guard troops from California, and California's governor says he's ready to sue over it. So we'll update all of those stories, get you the latest, and the greatest news and the not so great news on the other side of this. Maverick News. The world is watching. So much of what is happening in the world and has been happening in this world for a long time, since World War II, even before World War II, centers around, Israel, Balfour Declaration, all of that. The Jewish issue, Palestine. Well, we know that now what we have before us is a 20-point plan that President Trump is putting forward as a solution for peace that will result in the release of hostages, but maybe not so fast. Secretary of State Marco Rubio today on the talk show circuit saying the war in Gaza is not over. There's still more work to be done. I think he's trying to put forward an optimistic face with regard to this. But today on NBC's Meet the Press, he laid out, I think a slightly more realistic picture of what is happening in Gaza with the conflict there than we've had from the president himself, because he is saying that there is more work to be done, and he is calling on Hamas to release hostages, in his words, as soon as possible. Let's bring up the interview. We'll let some of this roll, make comment as it proceeds.
And joining me now is Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Secretary Rubio, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Well, I want to start with these peace negotiations in the Middle East. Is this now the end of the war in Gaza?
Well, not yet. There's some work remains to be done, and I would view it in two phases in terms of understanding how to break this out. The first piece of it, which was very clear from the letter and Hamas's response, is they have agreed to the president's hostage release framework. And what needs to happen now, and they acknowledge in the letter and their response, is there now needs to be meetings, which are occurring even as I speak to you now, and hopefully will be finalized very quickly on the logistics of that. What that means is, who goes in to get them? Is it Red Cross? When do they show up, et cetera? What place are they going to be? And the conditions have to be created for that to happen. You can't have bombs going off and fighting going on in the middle of this exchange. So that's piece one. The second, and we want to see that happen as soon as possible. All 48 hostages, both living and deceased. And there's some need to be released. And there's some logistical challenges to that we'll have to work through. But that work is happening even as I speak to you this very moment. The second part of it's even harder, and that is the long-term piece. What happens after Israel pulls back to the yellow line and potentially beyond that as this thing develops? How do you create this Palestinian technocratic leadership that's not Hamas, that's not terrorists, and with the help of the international community? How do you disarm any sort of terrorist groups that are going to be building tunnels and conducting attacks against Israel? How do you get them to demobilize? All that work, that's going to be hard, but that's critical, because without that, you're not going to have lasting peace. You may get the hostages back, you may get a cessation of hostilities, but in the long term, it's going to happen all over again. So both are going on at the same time, but priority number one, the one that we think we can achieve something very quickly on, hopefully, is the release of all of the hostages in exchange for Israel moving back to that yellow line, which is basically where they stood at the middle part of last month, of August. And that's the one we're focused on. Even as I speak to you now, there are people meeting on that.
I want to drill down on the timing of the hostages in just a moment. But first, just big picture. President Trump seems to be taking Hamas's response as a yes to his peace proposal. As you've indicated, though, there's a lot that still needs to be worked out. Hamas didn't mention laying down its arms, for example. Do you see Hamas's response as a yes to President Trump's peace proposal?
Well, it's certainly a yes to at least, look, it's Hamas, okay? So I'm not telling you here that these are people I trust 100%, nor should we. But they have said, basically, that they agreed to his proposal and the framework for releasing the hostages. That's an enormous achievement. They've also agreed, in principle and generalities, to enter into this idea about what's going to happen afterwards, the Palestinian technocrats, et cetera. There's a lot of details that are going to have to be worked out there. But look, this is a plan that the president put forward. But let's remember, it has the strong support of the UAE, of Qatar, of Egypt, of Saudi Arabia, the Turks, Indonesia, all these others. So there's a lot of international pressure on Hamas to make this happen, and we're going to need them and the European Union, and countries from around the world to also participate in making this thing work. So that second phase, the phase you're discussing, the disarmament, demobilization, that's not going to be easy. That's going to be hard, but it is really important, because without demobilization, you're not going to have a lasting peace. A lot of work has to happen there, and we acknowledge that, and we want it to work out, and we're going to do everything we can to make it work.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has indicated he expects the hostages to be released.
So, yeah, this is a much more realistic assessment of where we're at with regard to this 20-point peace plan, I think, than what we've had from Trump. From Trump, it has been rhetoric, it's been politics, it's been, as usual, pretty extreme comments. It's always the best. This is the best, and then on the opposite side, everything on the other side is the worst. So he's been spinning it in an extremely positive manner, almost like it's a completely done deal, but not so.
As soon as this week, is that your expectation that the hostages will be released this coming week, Mr. Secretary?
I mean, I would like the hostages to have been released yesterday. Now, we need to work through the logistics of how that's going to happen. I mean, and again, that sounds simplistic, but it's not just about, you got to make sure that there's no fighting going on. You have to make sure the Red Cross can get there, what time they're going to be there, where they're going to be. All of that has to be worked through. And that's not easy in the middle of an active war zone. That has to be de-escalated. And that's exactly what they're meeting about right now. I mean, that's what the talks are about. That's what the high-level talks are going to be in Cairo tomorrow.
Mr. Secretary, they could be released this week?
Our expectation, yeah. We want it to be as soon as possible. There's no doubt about it. We want it as soon as possible. It needs to happen as quickly as possible. And we will know very quickly whether Hamas is serious or not by how these technical talks go in terms of the logistics. But absolutely, we want these hostages, all of them, living and deceased, released as soon as possible.
Let me ask you about Israel's role in this. Israel has not agreed to fully withdraw from Gaza. What is the time frame by which the United States wants to see that happen? Are we talking weeks, months, years?
No, listen. So first of all, they have agreed, and that's part of the release, to move back to the yellow line, which is what they've called it. It's basically where Israel stood in the middle of August. And so that they've agreed to that piece. And I think ultimately everyone has agreed, including Israel, that eventually at some point here, as this process plays out, Gaza will be governed by a Palestinian technocratic group that's not Hamas, that are not terrorists, with the help and the assistance and the guidance of an international consortium like the Board of Peace, etc. That is the goal. Everyone who signed on to this agreement has agreed to.
Mr. Secretary, but weeks, months, years?
Well, that'll take. Yeah, no, in terms of, you can't set up a governance structure in Gaza that's not Hamas in 3 days. I mean, it takes some time. And when we ask Israel, okay, you're at the yellow line, now everything behind it, you have to turn it over. You have to have somebody to turn it over to. So, I mean, let's be realistic here. You can't just set up a sort of new governance structure inside of Gaza in 72 hours. That it's going to take some time to do it. The important thing is that there's a plan, it's being executed, it has the money, it has the support, it has the expertise, and that it's moving forward, and everyone has agreed to the parameters of it. But that is ultimately the goal here, that everyone who signed on to President Trump's deal has agreed to.
Mr. Secretary, I want to read point 19 of the president's.
And, this is at the heart of the issue here is that, yes, you can say you have a peace deal and you can be as optimistic as you want, but like so much else that's going on politically, both in the Middle East and here in North America, even in Canada, people want to tear things down or set things up, but they're really not telling you what it's going to look like on the other side. Hamas is classified as a terrorist organization. The Trump administration, the Israelis will not allow, they won't agree to having Hamas continue to govern. Essentially, Hamas is essentially the governing body in Palestine right now. You need something to hand everything over to. Israel still going to be effectively in control, and their troops, I don't think, will be actually withdrawn, because they will essentially be a force governing over everything in Palestine, even with this 20-point plan in place and implemented later. But you don't have a government structure set up yet. So Rubio is absolutely right. It's going to take a lot more time. And my fear is that this will not hold together long enough for any of that to actually happen.
Peace plan, I'll put it up so folks can see it. It says, quote, while Gaza redevelopment advances and when the Palestinian Authority reform program is faithfully carried out, the conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which we recognize as the aspiration of the Palestinian people.
Yeah, because the Palestinian Authority is really not ready. And I'm not even sure if the people, I don't know that you can't just hand power over to them, because they're not the government. They're not set up for that at this point. This is complicated, way more complicated than just sitting in front of a camera and making a declaration that there shall be peace. It is not going to hold together. You need to create a stable society, and that means having some form of government in place. We don't even know what that's really going to look like yet. So we're a long ways away from any kind of lasting stability there.
Trump administration now support Palestinian statehood, Mr. Secretary?
Well, look, first of all, that provision was very important to the countries that signed on with us, and Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, et cetera. They all really, that's a very important point to them. I think the most important point to read out of that is that you have to have somebody to turn it over to, right? Someone that you can hand that over to. We've always said that if there's going to be a two-state solution, it has to be negotiated with Israel. It has to make sure that Israel's security is taken into account. And so I would argue that I wouldn't say this is a new policy position. What I would say is, you want to be able to have in Gaza a place. Israel has no interest in governing Gaza. They want to turn it over to somebody, some organization that will govern it, that will not build tunnels and sponsor terrorism and come across the line and kidnap, rape, and murder Israelis. That's who they want to turn it over to. And right now that doesn't exist. That has to be built.
But, Mr. Secretary, in terms of where the administration stands, yes or no, does the Trump administration support
That's not a yes or no
Palestinian
question.
statehood?
That's a process. No, but that's not a yes or no question. That's a process. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we've always said this has been the consistent position of this administration, of myself, and of a lot of people that have watched this for a very long time. In order for that aspiration to even be credible, it has to be realistic. We can't have a Palestinian state that's governed by Hamas or by some terrorist organization whose stated purpose for existence is the destruction of the Jewish state. That would never work. Until Gaza is governed by people that are not interested in destroying Israel, until there are no security threats emanating against Israel from Gaza, forget about statehood. You're not going to have peace. So we have to create the conditions for that. That's going to take a while, and that's going to be part of what these negotiations are about in the days to come. But right now, the priority, number one, is to get the hostages released. If we can't even get an agreement on the hostages being released, you ain't going to have long-term peace here. So let's get that piece done. It's the most important, and then we can move to phase two, and it'll give momentum to the rest of the effort. But this is not going to be easy. No one said this is going to be easy. We are dealing with something that's been going on for a very long time.
All right. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, thank you very much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.
Perspective. And that is much more valuable, I think, if you really want to understand what's going on, than what we've been hearing from the president himself. That's politics. What Rubio just gave us, I think, is a more realistic assessment. Opinions will vary, obviously, on how it should be done, where we should go, whether what he says should be given any weight even. But no, Rubio is, I think, the shining star in the Trump administration, the most competent of everyone that he has in there. He better hold on to that guy, because he's, I think, keeping a lot of things together. He's like glue. And very, stable himself. So keep an eye on all of this, as we will in the days ahead, because we are now only 2 days away from the anniversary of October 7th. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. Let's pivot over to this story about this beating involving the Fox sportscaster Mark Sanchez. Has now been charged as of this morning by Marion County prosecutors for his alleged role, and I'll say alleged, even though there's surveillance footage of this, in a stabbing that left him seriously injured early yesterday in downtown Indianapolis. So he is now facing misdemeanor criminal charges of battery resulting in injury, public intoxication, and unlawful entry of a motor vehicle for his alleged role in the altercation. New court documents released. According to them, Indianapolis Metropolitan Police were called to a pub and eatery on West Wellington Street around 12:35 a.m. Our officers arrived. They found Sanchez suffering from several stab wounds to his upper torso. Now, a second man found nearby in an alley with cuts to his face, 69 years old. He was working between the Westin Hotel and the Indianapolis Marriott downtown. He's got some sort of a job driving a truck, and he collects used cooking oil. That's part of his job. Investigators reviewed hotel surveillance footage that seems to show Sanchez jogging into the alley. He approaches this man's box truck. They were talking. You can see them in the video before the interaction before it turned into a fight. And according to this affidavit, Sanchez allegedly opened the driver's door of the truck, climbed inside despite being told to leave. So this man told detectives that Sanchez seemed to be intoxicated. It says that he leaned in to hear him because he had a hearing aid. And as he got in closer, he could smell alcohol. He, in this statement to police, and claimed that he had spoken to a hotel manager. He said the truck was not supposed to be there. Then the worker tried to call his supervisor, and Sanchez apparently blocked him. It deteriorates. It turned pretty ugly. And the men were circling the truck. A struggle broke out near a big dumpster that was back there. Sanchez threw the victim in the video, allegedly, threw the victim toward the dumpster. They began to fight between the truck and the wall. And the 69-year-old man apparently used pepper spray to try to defend himself. But when Sanchez continued his advances, physical, violent, allegedly, he thought, according to the statement to police, he thought the guy was going to try and kill him. So he pulled out a knife and stabbed Sanchez several times in what he is saying is self-defense. Now, for the first time, we have photos that have been revealed, released. Let me bring them up here. These were obtained by, I believe Fox 59, local Fox News affiliate. They also have a CBS station out there. Show you what the photos look like. This is the 69-year-old man who we are told is quite possibly the real victim in this, not Sanchez. Obviously, the charge is not laid against this guy. Charge is laid against Sanchez. And there's the photos of the 69-year-old man. You can make your own assessment here, I guess. Yeah, and I should have maybe warned you in advance, but pretty graphic stuff. And look at the wound on his face. This wow. Keep in mind that this is after he's in hospital. Eyes blurred out, his name not released, I don't believe, at this point at all. So we'll see now. We have this report. This is the most up-to-date information we have on the case. So a celebrity, or at least media personality, in the court of public opinion, up against this 69-year-old gentleman. We'll see how it plays out that way, but now facing charges that will take him to court, where he will also, Sanchez, have to face the music there.
Tonight, the Marion County Prosecutor's Office has officially charged Mark Sanchez in connection with a stabbing this weekend in Indianapolis. And court documents say surveillance video captured the former NFL quarterback and current Fox Sports analyst in a fight in a downtown alley. Our Ella Rhodes digs into the accusations.
On Sunday, the Marion County Prosecutor's Office charged 38-year-old Mark Sanchez with battery resulting in injury, public intoxication, and unlawful entry of a motor vehicle after his alleged role in a physical altercation that left him stabbed. Sanchez was in town to commentate on the Colts versus Raiders game. Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears says this incident should never have happened. What began as a disagreement between a 38-year-old former professional athlete and a 69-year-old man should not have escalated into violence or left anyone seriously injured. It all started early Saturday morning on Washington Street. IMPD says they found 2 men from out of state injured when they got on scene. According to the police report, the victim says Sanchez approached him while he was in a truck backed into a loading dock at the Westin Hotel. Court documents say the victim was working when Sanchez opened the door of his truck. Then, allegedly, Sanchez told the driver he couldn't be at the loading dock. Police say the victim didn't have his hearing aids in, so he had to lean in to hear Sanchez. The victim told police he smelled alcohol on Sanchez and his speech was slurred. The police report goes on saying Sanchez sat inside the truck. The victim then told Sanchez he couldn't do that. The police report says Sanchez then got out of the truck but later went back in. The victim tried to grab his phone, but Sanchez stopped him. The police report says the victim got out of the truck and went to the loading dock of the Marriott and tried to flag down security. The victim returned to his car to try to get his phone again, but the report says Sanchez stopped him. Investigators say security camera footage shows Sanchez throwing the victim near the wall of the Westin. The report says at that moment, the victim says he realized he was in physical danger. That's when police say the victim grabbed his pepper spray and sprayed Sanchez in the face. Police say Sanchez wiped his face. IMPD says the victim told them he thought, quote, "This guy is trying to kill me," end quote. The report says the victim pulled out a knife, and when Sanchez approached him again, he stabbed him with the knife 2 or 3 times. Police say once the victim was on the ground, he couldn't tell what Sanchez was doing to him. The victim then struck Sanchez one last time before Sanchez ran off, according to IMPD. People nearby say they found Sanchez injured and helped him until EMS arrived. The police say the victim's statement matches what detectives saw in the Marriott security camera footage. Police say Sanchez is still in the hospital and has not yet been booked in jail, but they did place him under arrest. This is an ongoing investigation. In Indianapolis, Ella Rhodes, 13 News.
That could be a career-limiting move for Mr. Sanchez, depending on how things play out in court. It's amazing to me, though, how some of the times these people, when they get into deep trouble like that, they seem to evade long-term penalty, especially on the political side. Have you noticed? Well, change in tone, change in, I don't know, America. A lot of violence on the streets still tonight. As we've been covering this, we're seeing everything escalating day after day, day after day. Trump sending California National Guard troops to Oregon. That's the plan. Governor Newsome saying, no way. Going to sue to stop it. Here, let's take a look here. Get you the latest info on that. Right here. And up we go. CBS, Trump administration sending California National Guard troops to Oregon. Deploying more than 100 California National Guard troops or members to Oregon overnight into Sunday, officials there said, and more are expected after a judge temporarily blocked the administration from deploying California's Guard to Portland. Governor Tina Kotek said in a statement on Sunday that she's aware that 101 federalized California National Guard members arrived in Oregon Saturday night, and that it is her understanding that more are on the way. We have received no official notification or correspondence from the federal government regarding this action by the president. She said, this action appears to be intentional to circumvent yesterday's ruling by a federal judge. And then, as I said, right here, California Governor Gavin Newsom said the state's 300 National Guard troops being sent to Oregon had already been federalized in response to unrest in Los Angeles. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson confirmed the deployment, saying President Trump exercised his lawful authority to protect federal assets and personnel in Portland following violent riots and attacks on law enforcement. This is not dialing things down. I don't know if people are saying, this is securing things and addressing violence, but
the Trump administration's immigration crackdown significantly escalated. Angry residents faced off against heavily armed federal agents. They held down some protesters and used tear gas against others. In a separate incident, one woman was shot and injured after what the Department of Homeland Security said were defensive shots. This as Governor J.B. Pritzker warned that President Trump is activating 300 National Guard troops against his wishes. Tensions are also high in Portland, Oregon. CBS's Adam Yamaguchi is there with guardsmen possibly deployed to the city as early as this weekend. Adam?
Now, federal agents and protesters are squaring off again as the city's mayor and police chief say they don't need the National Guard. They've got the city under control.
We're a city in the forest that's as lush as can be.
Portland Mayor Keith Wilson took us on a tour.
This is really the home of innovation. That's always what Portland has been known for. And I know our reputation, we often talk about protests, but they're huge, peaceful protests.
200 members of the Oregon National Guard are being mobilized over the state's objections. Homeland Security says it's to protect the Portland ICE facility, which has seen increased protests over deportations.
There's nothing good that can come from bringing troops. It actually increases the temperature, which is the fear that we have.
Portland Police has jurisdiction. Chief Robert Day.
Do you need federal help?
No, we don't need the federal help. With the advent of social media, we're seeing the ability to take an event that might only be 15 or 20 people, but if you're filming that in a very condensed, small area, and then you put out a 20-second clip, it looks like the city's on fire. It looks like chaos.
While some welcome the possible presence of National Guard troops,
it's probably a good idea because it looks like the mayor and the governor are not able to handle this.
To others,
it's kind of a joke to me, honestly. It feels silly. I heard the military was coming, I was like, for what?
Yeah. I think it's trying to create a problem or make a problem when there isn't one.
To Mayor Wilson, it all comes down to Portland's progress versus perception.
We own our reputation from the past, but our reputation going forward is one of caring, it's concern, it's pride.
Now, the ICE protests happening daily are happening right outside of downtown Portland. Now, so far, the protests have been contained to a one-block area. Tom?
Adam Yamaguchi, stay safe out there. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the thing. Police chief kind of nailed it there when he said, with social media, like we've spoken about here on the program so many times, if you focus on a small thing, it can seem very large, especially with social media. So you have a protest on one street in the downtown of any major city. You get a bunch of social media streamers there. They're streaming all of this stuff, and it's all over social media. So it's amplified there, but you're not seeing one block over where people are sitting out on a park bench having an ice cream cone. So it appears like the whole city is in a state of chaos. We see that even in, every day in Toronto or in Ottawa, where it's a city of governance. In Toronto, you have Queen's Park. In Ottawa, you have the Parliament buildings, the seats of government. Of course, you get a lot of protests there. Every single day, there's a protest of some kind. When you constantly put that on, it gives people the impression that the whole country is in a state of instability. And in the minds of people, that plays out too. It's all about perspective. You can make a small crowd seem very, very large even by standing back and with your with your lens. If you have a zoom lens, this is something I learned a long time ago shooting video for news. If you zoom in on a crowd from a distance back, it compresses the image and it makes it look like a big crowd of people. When in reality, you might have 100 people. You can make it look like 1,000 by zooming in from a distance because it compresses the image. It's the same thing with social media, but it does it on a larger scale. That's largely what's going on here. It's about optics. It's about creating the perception management, creating the perception of chaos in order to create a pretext, justification for military intervention where it may not actually be warranted. Yes, you may have a problem on a street with a protest. Local police probably have the resources, the ability to handle that. By bringing in the military, it can actually exacerbate the problem because it's not community-based policing. You're bringing in the military to stand against some sort of opposing force. That is really what is happening. That is actually creating, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, this is creating more instability. It's putting peace at risk. It's making things worse. And you're seeing this. You make a safer community by giving policing, local policing, community police, the resources they need to go in and enforce the law and to keep the peace. To keep everyone peaceful, not to go in and stand against protesters in order to enforce or support a political agenda. They should go in, be apolitical, not have a position on the politics, simply enforce the law. And the law should be enforced blindly, applying to everyone equally. If someone breaks the law, they get arrested and charged. You break a window, you get charged. Simple as that. And you keep both sides maybe even away from each other if you have two opposing protests in order to keep people safe. That's what, it really needs to be done. I see the attempts to do that on the streets of Canada, but I also see protesters that want to clash. Therein lies the rub, and police caught in the middle. You bring in the military. What Trump is doing, it's fairly clear. This is like they're going to war against their political opponents. He's putting the military, or at least the National Guard, on the streets to oppose Antifa, to oppose anybody that's left-wing, anybody that's opposed to his political agenda and his political ideology. That's not very American. It scares the living daylights out of me. But regardless of whether I agree with this position or that position, as I say, the law should just be applied equally across the board. I don't think that, even in Canada, sometimes it isn't. But sometimes also the perspective is skewed by the live streamers these days who are showing you stuff, because it's not just what they're showing you, it's what they're not showing you. It's the way they portray it. And we've shown you sometimes they're running into the middle of a group of people who are politically and ideologically opposed to them, their opponents, and getting right up in their face and then saying, well, I have every right to be here. And they get into a confrontation and then claim to be a victim. So there's all of that going on too. And because you're only seeing it from a certain perspective, it looks like they are the victim, when in reality, they went out of their way in order to engage in some sort of a conflict. And I have to admit that, I've been duped that way. Especially, because it's all new. This is a new thing with social media. So there have been times where I'm a little more savvy now than I was. Even as a lifelong media guy, it has taken me time to realize what some of these people have been doing. Because you're only seeing it from this angle and not what's behind the lens on this side. Where did they come from? How did they end up in the path of these oncoming protesters? In any event, this is kind of what's going on. And I hope that, like that report, I think really kind of nailed it in terms of trying to give us all proper perspective on this. Now, did I have a clip? I think I had a clip related to that, actually, from Trump. He was talking about wokeism. Right here. This is it here. I'd kind of forgotten about this, so I had it sort of sitting off to the side. This is important too, because it's all about language. And this is a word that is now coming up and being used by Trump himself, insurrectionists. And he speaks specifically about Portland in this clip today. And we should take note of this, because this is also another step in escalation. Words are extremely important. They've been throwing around domestic terrorists. We've seen that on the other side of the equation too. Before Trump came back into office, and even before that, domestic terrorists. Who's a terrorist? Whoever the government says. Whoever's in power gets to, designate as a terrorist. But now it's also insurrectionists, and this is the language being used even tonight or today by Trump. So that's a word to another red flag word.
Portland is burning to the ground. You have agitators, insurrectionists. All you have to do is look at the television, turn on your television, read your newspapers. It's burning to the ground. The governor, the mayor, the politicians are petrified for their lives.
Mr. President,
and you have a judge like that, that judge ought to be ashamed of him. Portland is burning.
So he's referring to the judge putting the temporary block on sending the National Guard troops to Portland from another state. So, and listen to what he actually says there. Listen again to what he's advising you to do, and listen to the word.
Portland is burning to the ground.
Is Portland burning to the ground? The mayor says no. Police chief says no. Yeah, they have protests. Yes, they have sometimes some problems, but is the whole city burning to the ground? See, this is the kind of extreme language that we always get from Trump.
You have agitators, insurrectionists.
Agitators and insurrectionists. Are they protesters? Or are they insurrectionists? What does he mean by insurrectionist? An insurrectionist is someone who wants to overthrow the government. If you want to overthrow the government, would you do that from Portland? Which government are they overthrowing? The state government or the federal government? I guess he must think it's the federal government, because he's the one concerned about it. He's sending in troops and federalizing them. So I don't know how you do that from Portland. Well, maybe indirectly, I guess, but insurrectionists, that's a strong word. That's a legal term too.
All you have to do is look at the television.
All you got to do is look at the television?
Turn on your television, read your newspapers. It's burning to the ground.
Yeah, because there's perspective. All you got to do is turn on your TV. Look at your TV. Watch it on social media. That'll show you what's going on. Maybe. But what's the reality? What's it really like on the streets? What's it like to be in the city? What's the real perspective? Cameras don't see things the way the human eye does. What you're watching online is not really a complete and full representation of reality. It's a snapshot. And when you see a series of snapshots focused on one thing, it skews your perspective. But he says, all you got to do is watch television. Depends on how the information is portrayed. And, a lot of this stuff is choreographed.
The governor, the mayor, the politicians are petrified for their lives.
Oh, everybody's petrified for their lives. Again, pretty extreme commentary, very extreme language. Insurrectionists petrified for their lives. Portland is burning to the ground. That sounds like the whole city is on fire. We've seen cities on fire in the past. Did the video there look like the entire city of Portland was on fire? They've had problems out there, and don't get me wrong, but I see people wanting to fight.
And you have a judge like that, that judge ought to be ashamed of him.
Perspective. Extreme language makes me very nervous, because we are seeing things ramp up on the streets. We are seeing more conflict. We are seeing some violence. We saw yesterday a woman shot. That's what gets people. That's what pushes things over the edge. And that's happening because you've got this conflict now between federalized National Guard troops and protesters who are not armed to that degree and certainly don't have the weight of the government behind them and therefore law as it may be applied fairly or unfairly. They have lawyers, money. It's two political warring factions within the United States coming together on the street to clash. And the people on the streets, on the front lines of these protests turned into conflict, are, I think, in large part, quite often just being used as pawns. And even these National Guard troops, I mean, these are people that are being pulled from their ordinary, regular 9-to-5 jobs and then deployed into U.S. cities in military gear to clash with other people who are generally out there on a weekend protesting, the weekend warriors. And when Biden was in power, it was kind of the other way around, right? But now it's like amped up because Trump is bringing in troops. So this is a whole new, this is a new ball game. And I see a lot of people online, and this is what I voted for. We are so back. Really? This is the America that you wanted? Okay. Please keep it over there. But I see escalation on the Canadian side too. You talk about fake news. How about, you know, this is choreographed. This is generated. And people are watching TV and social media and they're buying into it. Yeah. Even that stabbing Sanchez, in the wake of that, the initial reports of Sanchez being involved, Indiana Governor Mike Braun and Lieutenant Governor Mika Beckwith were quick to tweet out statements casting blame on the lack of public safety in Indianapolis. Beckwith says the city was sliding into lawlessness and called for the governor and attorney general to be granted more power to create safe streets. But maybe not quite so simple. I don't know who got the worst of it in the end, Sanchez or the guy laying in the hospital with the wounds to his face. And oh man, wow. Anyway, we'll see how it plays out in court. Nothing at this point with regard to the Sanchez case has been proven in court, so we'll see what the defense says. But there's definitely been a change in America since Trump has come back in for Trump administration 2.0. Today, what was the Trump was on a naval vessel. Let me just check that. Trump naval vessel, Navy One. He's on this boat. Where was he? I'm not sure what ship he was on. I just took note of this today. So they commemorate the 250th anniversary of the Navy. What boat was he on? What ship? Now we can give you a little bit of the footage here while I figure that out. I just take note of it. It's an important story. We bring it up. I just don't have all the information, but I will get you the facts as we show you some of the footage. Here it is, Naval Station, Norfolk, Virginia. So here he is. That's where he was today. This is the pool feed. All media. Media writers. So his rhetoric here, you know, we've been hearing, listen to the language when we get to the clips, what he's saying, the words.
photo, everyone.
Let's pull that down. I want to get to the clip. Here he is here saying that, again, the United States right now is not what it was even 6-7 months ago, for sure. No more wokeness. You heard that in the speeches from Hegseth and Trump to the generals and admirals. And we got more of that today. The words are important. Listen.
I don't know. Would you ever want to, we won World War I. We won World War II. We won everything in between. We won everything before. And all of a sudden they decide to change the name.
He's talking about it being now the Department of War instead of the Defense Department.
Woke then too, woke is a long-term word. I said, what do you think about changing it to the Department of War? He said, I love it, sir. And that was about the end of it, right? That was the end of it. Thank you, Pete. Great job. He's a great leader. Also, Secretary, I don't know.
So he says it's the end of political correctness. They're not politically correct anymore. It's now the Department of War. Because they just want to win. Just want to win. Wow. Okay, let's take a little break. We're going to come back. We'll continue on the other side. Stay with me.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right. Oh, here's an interesting story. Yeah, if you, I just took note of this today. In the province of Quebec, Canada, they have a new durable goods law that has come into effect. What does that mean? Well, for instance, if you buy a Tesla, they have rules like only a Tesla dealer can service your Tesla if you don't, depending on where you live. Certain states have laws in place that prohibit that. So if you want to take your Tesla to an independent garage to have your Tesla car fixed, you're supposed to be allowed to do that, or maybe buy parts yourself even to fix it yourself. But if they don't have those laws in place, in order to keep your Tesla under warranty, you have to take it to a Tesla dealer to get it fixed. A lot of people don't realize that when they buy one, but that then locks you into maintenance and repairs that might cost you a lot more money in the long run. And in addition to that, a lot of manufacturers of products have something called planned obsolescence. It's actually very common. It's pretty much built into every product you buy. It has a certain life expectancy. And then after that certain period of time, the product isn't going to be of any use to you anymore because it's going to be broken, obsolete. Computers are a perfect example of that. They only last so many years because after a while they stop supporting them with updates for the operating systems, for instance. So after 5 or 7 or 8 years, you have to get a new one. So too is the case. That's the case with a lot of things, even like washing machines. They know that those things will only last so long, and then they're going to break, and then you're going to need a new one. And if you can't get parts for them, you can't fix them. Now you're out of luck, pretty much. So Quebec now has a new law in place, and this is becoming a little more common in some provinces and states. Not everywhere, but it is, I think, a good thing for consumers, because it gives a layer of protection for people when they buy expensive items, like in this case, as an example, stoves, refrigerators, freezers, durable goods. And this new law has come into effect today. To protect consumers against planned obsolescence while ensuring that they have information needed to repair and maintain the goods they buy. So this is the right to repair law, is what they're calling it in Quebec. Similar to, I think it's Massachusetts has similar laws in place, and that directly has been a response, I believe, and this is from memory, but I think that their laws were a direct response to what Tesla was doing with their products. As part of the province's amendments to its consumer protection law, and it's going to require retailers and manufacturers to disclose whether replacement parts and repair services are available to consumers, along with maintenance information, and they have to make that clear to people ahead of the sale. So these were passed unanimously by the provincial legislature back in 2023. Now today, they are the law as part of an act to protect consumers against deliberate shortening of the lifespan of a product and to promote durability, repairability, and maintenance of goods. So they had existing laws dating back to 1978, which required retailers and manufacturers to provide information or replacement parts and repair services to consumers, make them available. Now consumers will have information to fix items themselves, generally at a lower cost. And the availability guarantee has been in place for more than 45 years and already included an obligation to inform customers in the event of an exemption. That, according to the Justice Minister. But he says too often citizens only learned after their purchase that the merchant did not offer parts or repair services, and this is not normal, he says. This, it isn't actually a good thing. It provides a little more transparency. It gives you better information so you can make purchases based on true value, assessing the longevity of a product. How long is it likely to last? How long can you maintain it? And it makes me think back to the refrigerator that, we had here that we actually just got rid of, and it was still functioning because that refrigerator was purchased from Sears. The reason I made the decision to buy that refrigerator, how many years ago would that be? 30 years ago? Was because I knew Sears had a parts department and you could go there. I bought that thing when I was living in Windsor, Ontario. Yes. And decided to buy it at Sears because I knew you could get parts no matter what. They had always had parts for those fridges. So bought that thing, lasted a long time, had to fix it twice. But I was able to get parts. Last time it went on the blink, still got a part for it. Still was able to fix it. Needed a switch, an automatic switch, but they had the part in order to turn the compressor on and off. A lot of people would have just thrown the refrigerator away, but I was able to get a part for like $40 and fixed it myself. I also learned, this is something maybe you want to take note of if you have a refrigerator, I couldn't get a repair person to come out and look at it. Nobody wanted to come and look at the fridge or fix it. I said, you can fix it. I know you can. Nope. I had a guy who was going to come out, never did show up. I went through, didn't have the refrigerator working for like a week. And that's because parts are hard to obtain. Most people just throw the things away. Most people don't want to pay for a repair guy. So the very few repair guys in my community anyway left to repair refrigerators. So the landscape is changing, and that's all related to planned obsolescence, where people buy these things and then basically chuck them. They get frustrated. They can't get parts out. They go in with the new one. And even though I fixed that fridge, even though I fixed it, my wife still ended up getting a new refrigerator. Yeah. So that thing was basically given away, and the old one. But I mean, it was, my gosh, over 30 years old. Missed that fridge. And I have a feeling the new one ain't going to last that long. I'm pretty sure it's not. In fact, well, I don't need to get into it anymore, but I know for sure it's not going to, because they're just not built as well. And I really doubt that 30 years from now, I'm going to be able to get parts for the new refrigerator that took the place of the old one. But eventually I have to replace them no matter what. So be it. That's the way she goes. What else do we have going on? Okay, so we did that, we did that. In Canada, of course, Mark Carney getting ready to meet with Donald Trump this coming week. And I believe he's going to Washington. All eyes on the Canadian side are on that story because they will be talking about trade. And as part of that, I think one of the bargaining chips that Canada has is the F-35 fighter jet deal. I believe there are 16 of those that are currently being produced. They're going to buy, there's supposed to be a deal for 88 in total. That's a huge amount of money. It's under review by the Canadian government again. And tonight, we are seeing that there is no timeline on making a decision. I think that's strategic because as Carney goes to negotiate trade deals or on various levels with Trump, he's holding that one back because that is a huge amount of money. And today on CTV, Canada's Secretary of State for Defense Procurement said there is no new timeline for the government to make a decision about the purchase of those F-35s from the United States, and that Carney will make a decision, quote, when he's ready. Let's bring this up. We'll give you the clip from the CTV program because, of course, this is the Sunday News Magazine Day, so news is being made on the news.
Push to pivot away from reliance
Let me see if I can get the audio up.
On the United States. The Liberal government is looking to rearm the Canadian Armed Forces while simultaneously
come on.
Boosting domestic defense manufacturing. It comes at a low point, though, for Canada-U.S. relations and ahead of Prime Minister Mark Carney's second trip down to Washington, D.C.
I'm sorry, I can't get the audio up all the way because it's stupid.
Where he's set to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump.
Let me see if I can make it work. It's just there. Now we're good. Let's start it over.
Ottawa's latest push to pivot away from reliance on the United States. The Liberal government is looking to rearm the Canadian Armed Forces while simultaneously boosting domestic defense manufacturing. It comes at a low point, though, for Canada-U.S. relations and ahead of Prime Minister Mark Carney's second trip down to Washington, D.C., where he's set to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump. Stephen Fuhrer is the Secretary of State for Defense Procurement. He'll be overseeing the new agency. Hi, Minister. It's a pleasure to welcome you to our program. Thanks so much for making the time.
The alternative for Canada would be, I think, to buy the Gripen, Sweden, but and if it looks like if Canada were to do that, the jets that Canada buys would actually be produced here as well. But there's politics at play, make no mistake.
Thank you for having me, Vashi.
According to DND's own website, it takes on average for major defense projects, like the whole procurement cycle, somewhere on average between 10 and 15 years. How much faster will that be under this new agency?
Remarkably faster. That is completely unacceptable. It shouldn't take that long. It's exacerbated by the fact that the technology cycle is actually getting smaller and the defense procurement cycle is getting longer. So that even adds more stress to the situation because the thing that you wanted on day one delivered 10 years into the future is virtually irrelevant. So we absolutely have to make this faster, and this single point of accountability with the resources and authorities that it now has is going to be capable of delivering much, much faster.
What is remarkably faster like? Can you quantify that? And I'm asking, not just to sort of come out of nowhere, but because we do have that average number, because there's been so many big projects that we focused on over the years that we know how long those take. Like, how do we hold your government accountable? What is remarkably faster?
Well, like you said, there's a long history of how fast it has been done. I mean, we can only control what we can control. We can control the process that we choose, and there's a number of procurement practices that we can choose. Some are faster than others. I need defense to deliver me requirements faster. They will move. I mean, and money doesn't seem to be the issue. The issue with the money is how we spend the money. That has been a barrier. People go through a project and then there's no funding and then it sits on a shelf for a long time. That doesn't seem to be the barrier moving forward. The challenge with the money bit is parlaying that spend into a way that benefits Canada the most effective way and delivers jobs for Canadians. But money will be there because that's a priority. So defense needs to deliver requirements faster. We will pick best in show or best in practice procurement processes that deliver faster. And this whole thing will go faster. I'll give you one example. Submarines. There was, I think, 24-ish responses to an RFI on submarines. We looked at them, evaluated them, and decided that there was 2 qualified suppliers. Now we're having 2 of them square off to see who's going to deliver, in this particular case, best benefit to Canada economically, because both submarines meet the Navy's high-level requirements. So we had said contract award in 2028. I'm hoping to do it next year.
I'm going to ask this one more time. What are the metrics that we're going to judge you by that, right? Like, I take your point on the example of submarines, but just put yourself in our shoes as Canadians. And you've been on the other end, too. You've listened so many times. Different governments say, hey, we've got the fix to this massive problem that we have. I understand the context is different right now, that the crisis we face vis-a-vis the United States is different, but like you're just saying it's going to be faster. You can't tell me on average it'll be 5 years faster or 3 years faster or even what the target would be.
Yeah, and part of the reason is we don't control the whole process. Like, we control major aspects of it, but there's other things that I don't control. I mean, vendor returns, there's a whole bunch of things that I have no control over. So I can't give you a specific number because I don't have control over the entire process. I think that's the most logical answer I can give you. But if I go back to the process and the fact that the funds are available and will be protected in the budget, and that we have remarkably changed it in a way it had never been changed before. We have the resources we need, and there's absolutely no reason to think this won't go much, much faster.
I wanted to also ask about the impetus for doing this, as far as it was conveyed during the election, which is to move away from spending a lot of our defense procurement money in the United States. The Prime Minister had said it's 75 cents on every dollar, and that the goal would be to reduce that through this agency. I was reading some analysis last week, though, with the Hill Times, which indicated that in the first half of this year, so for half that period, your government has been in charge, and prior to that, the threat from Trump was also there, U.S.-based firms received more than $68.6 million in contracts awarded by D&D, which is a 24% increase over the same period the previous year. Why should Canadians, Minister, believe this agency will be able to do what your government, even under the threat of Trump, has not yet been able to do?
Well, you bring up a good point. I mean, these are, to our earlier conversations, these things had been in the hopper for years. And this new reality that we live in vis-a-vis the United States is 10 months old. So it's like turning around an oil tanker. It just doesn't happen on a dime. So, I mean, I guess what we could have done is just canceled everything. And what would have that done to the timeline on delivering things to our military? It would have made a mess of it, right? So we are doing what we can moving forward. We have a couple different lenses to apply to our procurements. One is, can we do it in Canada? How can we maximize every dollar into our own supply chain, into our own great Canadian companies? How many jobs can we create? That's a new lens. And the other lens is, who are we going to partner with moving forward? Which like-minded nations do we want to have these long-term relationships with? And what else can we do with these nations? Can we parlay them into a bigger economic relationship? Because this defense spend is substantial, and there has to be other ways that we can capitalize on it. Spend it in Canada, yep. And spend it with other countries that we want to work with and maybe build out other projects. There's tons of opportunity. But to your point, I mean, the way we did things the same way for decades, that does not change overnight.
And how will Canadians be able to judge the success or lack thereof on that? I heard a number of different exchanges, with journalists today in which you didn't want to put a target. What's the target? 50% from the U.S., less than 50%, different than that? Again, I understand it's a complex situation, but from the outside, if we're trying to say, like, have we actually achieved? Has your government actually achieve what you said you wanted to do? How will we be able to judge that? And are you kind of hoping that we won't by not putting a number on it?
No. I mean, in terms of it's a very difficult thing to put a number on, because it's really weapon system specific, or whatever it is, the good or service we're trying to procure. It's very specific. I mean, if the United States is the only place on planet Earth that we can get something that we absolutely need to do the job that we ask our Canadian armed forces to do, odds are we're going to buy it from the United States. We haven't ended the relationship with the United States. It is just going to look different. It makes no sense for Canada to be so reliant on one particular supplier for anything, whether it be the United States or anybody else.
I wanted to conclude by asking about the F-35s against exactly the backdrop that you just laid out. I heard you say at your press conference that you don't feel any pressure to make a decision about the F-35s, despite the initial deadline or timeline being provided by your government at the end of the summer. I was just wondering why you don't feel any pressure. The U.S. ambassador, for example, intimated to me in an interview in May that his country would be reconsidering NORAD if we dropped the F-35s. That seems like a pressure-filled decision, no?
Well, I mean, I think I read something about that too. I mean, we're an equal partner with NORAD, and we're a sovereign country. So we will make our own decisions based on our own needs. I mean, it's that simple. I know the ambassador and other people have said things in the press to maybe indicate that they don't necessarily understand that, but Canada will stand on its own feet. We'll work with Americans where we can, and we'll stand on our own 2 feet where we have to. This is an important decision for us. Like I had mentioned earlier, if you saw it, we're under contract for 16 planes. The airplanes are in various stages of being manufactured at the supplier in the U.S. No decision's been made. It's a very complicated, file, and the Prime Minister will make a decision when he's ready. So this second sober look at what we're going to do moving forward isn't slowing anything down, and we'll take the time we need to get the decision right. That is the most important aspect of this decision.
But I mean, when it comes to the timeline, and you would know better than me given your experience in the military, but those CF-18s are, older than 30 years old. The Australian stopgaps are also very old. Operational readiness has dropped in some years. Less than 60% of our fleet, for example, is available. And once again, I think to the outside, that feels like there is pressure to make a decision. Combine that with what the U.S. is saying about NORAD, which, despite our relationship right now, is integral to the defense of this continent. Like, why are you guys not able to even meet a deadline that you set yourselves for the end of the summer?
Well, like I said, the more you look at it, the more that you consider it. We've done a lot of things in the 34 sitting days that has happened. Major Projects Office, Build Canada Homes, the DIA, all the legislative, C5 through the House of Commons. I mean, there's literally a whole host of things that are happening right now at great speed because of the moment that we face. So this is an important decision, but there's lots of them to make. And, you know, like I said, we're on contract for 16 airplanes. So we have, you know, airplanes going through the system. And when the Prime Minister has all the information that he needs, he'll make the decision.
All right, Minister, I'm going to leave it on that note. Appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
There you go. It's not just about defense, it's about economics, and it's political. Stay with me.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Too late. Too late. Too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. I don't want to talk about the ostriches. All right. Oh, man. Can we please just, can it please end? Please? Soon? Like now? All right. What a circus. It continues. Of course, nothing happened over the weekend because we still don't have a Supreme Court decision on whether the appeal will be heard at that level. We're waiting. Maybe tomorrow. Who knows? It's a standoff of sorts out there. And oh my gosh, it's a show. I talked about it last night and it continued today. So much of it is just disingenuous. It's like, well, I'll just give you some of what's going on and then you can just, I don't know, make an assessment. I don't even know what to do anymore. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to get realigned here, get my thoughts together, and try to make some sort of a sense out of this for you tonight. So now over the weekend, we've had all these weekend warriors come, being encouraged by live streamers, come out to the farm, save the ostriches. So now a lot of people out there, there's got to be over, I don't know how many people, easily over 100. And in addition to that, you have a lot of live streamers on the Save Our Ostriches side. The usual players, really freedom movement people mostly. I've noted that in the last couple of weeks as well, a lot of the people, well, some of the people who were sort of questioning a lot of the craziness going on out there, even from within the freedom movement, they clearly have been given, some of these folks, marching orders and saying, get with the program. Maybe, I don't know what else might be going on behind the scenes with regard to that, but they've changed their rhetoric and no more questioning anything, get on script. And this is what we're getting. This is why when I asked last night and the night before, where are the baby birds? Nobody wants to talk about it. It's the strangest thing. The most alarming thing for me. There's something going on there. Nobody wants to talk about it. People got angry, have been angry with me for asking that question. Where are the baby birds? So I'm going to ask again, where are the baby birds? Why no baby ostriches out at the Universal Ostrich Farm? Why haven't we seen any? How many baby birds are lined up for this cull that is supposed to take place? I'll leave it there. So what are we seeing right now? We are seeing, as I said, live streamers going out there. Most notable, you know, the big one, Rebel News has arrived. Well, they've been there before, but the Grand Poobah, the head honcho, Ezra Levant, has arrived on scene. You know, my perspective on this stuff, especially in the last year, has really shifted, changed a lot, because I'm seeing kind of through the facade. I've been telling you for quite some time that what's going on out there is being influenced heavily by foreign money, specifically American foreign money, that it's coming from MAGA, that it's coming from the Trump administration. This protest is being helped along by all of that. It's blatant. It's right in your face if you choose to see it. Today, this video, this conversation / interview between Ezra Levant and Katie Pisitny from the Ostrich Farm. Of course, for those of you who have been living with your heads in the sand and you don't know what's going on out there, the ostriches out at this farm have been culled by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency because of an avian flu outbreak back in December, and they've been using lawfare essentially to delay this cull and draw attention to this cause, which is, well, what is the cause? Well, that's the thing, right? I say that it really isn't so much about the ostriches. It's about a political movement and an anti-government movement, which is what this has become, an anti-government protest. And here's the thing. This interview really echoes everything I have been saying, confirming what I've been telling you. But of course, they're conveying the information in a way that they think is very positive. But this really, I'm going to comment on this as I get through it. I wasn't sure if I would even run this tonight, but it's hard to resist the ostrich story, isn't it? Here's Ezra talking to Katie Pisitny.
Break within the RCMP are starting to see after the week that this has been in progress. There's something wrong here.
But they, you know,
I heard your statement. Yeah. I know, and I believe that too, which is so wrong. This is wrong. What RCMP stands here is to protect the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Yeah. And they made it very clear with you, didn't they?
No, not true. Not true. They're there to keep the peace. That's what they're there for. Yeah, they're there to protect the CFIA for sure. And also to make sure that their court order, where they've been allowed to secure the property, to proceed with the cull, so that they're protected, because everybody has to be protected. They're also there to protect the protesters. That's why we've seen the cops, in some cases, hugging the protesters. You can't tell me that they're not they're not listening. They do. But what I've seen, I just saw some sort of somebody, an indigenous person being hugged by a police officer, blah, blah. I mean, that in itself was some sort of a public relations perception management thing, but the cop was doing it in the interest, I'm sure, of keeping the peace.
Yeah, they are sort of the bodyguards for the CFIA. They're not here for the people. And I asked them about...
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Mischief done by the CFIA. They basically said, not our job.
Yeah, it's not funny how we pass jurisdiction.
No, I don't know about that, Ezra. I think that there's a lot of bias in what we're watching here right now.
We just keep passing off. Yeah, nobody's above the CFIA. Nobody, or, the CFIA is untouchable, and there's a problem.
That's not true either. They have to follow rules, and if you catch them actually truly breaking the rules, they can be held accountable. Absolutely. If they go around, doing things that legally they're not true. They're powerful. I don't agree with a lot of the things they do, but just because you disagree with it doesn't mean they are not accountable.
here in Canada.
The size of this operation, police-wise, they wouldn't say how many police are here.
Yeah.
One cop said
they wouldn't tell you the number of police because that's an operational thing and a security thing. So of course they're not going to tell you. They're not going to reveal all that information.
30 minimum. It's more than that. I can see 30 in effect right now.
Yeah, not the command center.
And then there's the staging area where more.
Yeah.
This is an enormous operation.
It is.
That is clearly in the millions of dollars.
Yes.
Think about the overtime pay, let alone the hotels, the meals, the per diems.
LOA, that an hour and a half from the city that they're traveling.
Yeah.
And then now how many RCMP are sitting in Vernon right now for these shift changes?
It's
then the fuel and the barricades and the military operation of the drone jammers and the...
Is that what those were, those strange devices?
Yeah, back there. And then there's some underneath camouflage netting that they're hiding.
Oh, imagine that. Like, why would they do that? And it's like, why would they do that? Isn't that look at all the money they're spending. What so wasteful. And for what? Because, as we pointed out, well, it could be because you have a giant protest on site. You could be because the people at the protest have been breaking a lot of rules all the way along. Could be because Katie Pasitny appeared on a program with a guy who was openly calling, whether she agrees with it or not. She didn't disagree and she nodded her head, maybe just to go along to get along at the moment. I don't believe she really wants any of that stuff to happen, but this guy was calling for people to get guns and go out to the farm and he was from and do what they have done in the States at places like Ruby Ridge, stand against the authority. So as I laid out for you before, cops have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And if that is what may be the worst, they have to prepare for that. So you have this circus that has been created out there for political reasons. No wonder you have so many cops out there, because you have some of these people are anti-government protesters. If anything were to go wrong and they didn't have the cops out there, you can be damn sure that if somebody got hurt, the first people to criticize the cops would be the people you see on site right now, live streaming. Why didn't you keep people safe? Why didn't you, foresee all of that? That's the job of police. If you're a police chief, if you're the head of any police service in this country, you almost have to have a crystal ball. You're expected to. Essentially, you need to prepare for any eventuality and make sure that you keep your people safe, your officers, and all the people on all sides of any scenario safe. Whether it's, I remember years ago when I was a much younger reporter, there was a World Cup soccer match, and it turned into an incident on the streets of Windsor with a demonstration after it was all over with. Because Italy had been playing and people got upset and there was damage in the streets. And the police chief, who was one of the best police chiefs I'd ever known at the time, he took the blame for it. And he said, I should have foreseen what could have happened and prepared for it. But they didn't have officers out for that event, didn't realize that there might be something that could happen and they weren't prepared. I learned at that point that if you're a cop and if you're in charge of a police service, you need to prepare for the worst. And that's what's going on out at the farm right now. Why to this scale? Well, it's because of what you're watching here right now. It's a response to to the circus that the live streamers and really Rebel News have ginned up out there.
Big telescopic devices. They have ladders going in and out of the kill box.
None of that has anything to do with public health. All of that has everything to do with public policy and politics and optics. Those bales of hay
and safety. And yes, optics, the CFIA bringing in the drone jammers, putting up. I've told you why, because now it's become a political thing, because they're forcing the politics, and the CFIA doesn't want to show the slaughter. These guys do. The CFIA doesn't want to live stream. They don't do that for obvious reasons, because it would be very distasteful to people. It's just too much reality for people to handle. That's why usually when they issue a call order, they don't even tell you where the farm is located, because it can be embarrassing and even damaging for the, financially for the farm owner if they publicize where the outbreak has been identified. But in this case, these guys want you to know. They keep giving the address of the place. They want everybody to go there. They want all cameras trained on this. And as I said yesterday, it's pretty clear to me, they want these birds. Sorry, they want them dead. Probably more than the CFIA does, because that would be the optimal photo op that will just be the gift that keeps on giving from the negative PR perspective.
Nothing to do with medical. It's all about, and those hazmat suits are theatrical.
Theatrical optics.
Health theater.
Yes.
And that's
This is theater. They are actually following the rules with regard to the hazmat suits. If you read the media releases from the CFIA, they only have to wear those suits in certain areas.
That's why it's a flashback for COVID times.
I'm not saying I agree with everything, but this is the reality too. There are two sides to this. And what's going on here right now, you're watching theater. Absolutely watching theater.
Arbitrary, dramatic, scare everybody, but underneath it, no science. Very frustrating.
And we're watching punishment. This is punishment.
The process is the punishment.
And this is punishment. This isn't justice. And I think that's what I said to the ostriches have become beacons of hope, and a lot of Canadians and people around the world after COVID can see themselves in these animals. Quarantined.
I was in Texas 2 days ago.
Silence.
They said, what's up with
birds are not people, but they have personified them. They're trying to create that scenario, but it is not the same. It's not the same. The ethics, the laws, the rights, it's not the same. Not the same scenario. I understand how they're conflating it and how they're exploiting it, but it's not the same.
those ostriches?
Yeah.
Even in America, they're saying, what's going on
What's
up there?
going on with those ostriches?
And not in a good
Why
way.
won't they test them?
This is
Notice,
not a good
This is
look
not
for
good.
did you notice that? Even in America, he says, even in America. That's important. Let's continue.
Canada. I said to John Catsimatidis out of New York, we were on the radio yesterday, and said, if this is allowed in Canada and this actually happens, this is a warning for the rest of the world.
Well, it's ostriches today. It's your pet tomorrow.
Absolutely. And they're
Not really, not necessarily. That's not true. It's not true.
doing pets already with the 2007.
Because my dog is not poultry. But ostriches are poultry. Even though they're telling you ostriches are not poultry, they are. They're lying. They're not coming from my dog.
We just talked to a farmer.
Not right now.
They killed everything. They killed her dogs. They killed her cats. They killed everything.
Or so she says. I don't know if that's even true. I'd have to look into it and see what the circumstances are surrounding that. But these people have made claim after claim after claim, many of which have been proven to be not true in the end.
And that's in 2007 because the Stamping Out policy has been in effect for 21 years. They've been left unchecked for 21 years, operating in this manner. So again, we need to see the dismantle of Canadian Food Inspection Agency and a rebuild from the ground up.
Oh, so she wants the CFIA dismantled and rebuilt. That's important. See, I thought this was about saving her ostriches. What she's really after here, as I've been indicating, is it's an assault on the system. This is about more than just her ostriches. She is calling for the dismantling of the complete government agency.
With an organization that Canadians can trust.
You know,
with an organization Canadians can trust. Well, trust has certainly been undermined, deteriorated, and that's largely because of media campaigns like this, also because of what the government did during COVID. So this is a big issue, and that erosion of trust in our public institutions and systems is being to some degree exploited here. And I can't say that I get it. And I certainly am not on board with what was going on during the pandemic, but I don't like a circus either, because especially one where we're being fed like lies, outright lies at times. And I don't like it when claims are being made that can't be supported.
outside Niagara Falls, there's something called Marine Land.
Yeah.
There's all these belugas.
Yeah.
And there was a aquarium that wanted to buy them, but the Canadian government said no. They're basically going to be culled also. Yeah. I don't understand what's...
No, not culled. The owners of the park say that the whales will be euthanized because they won't be able to feed them, because they don't have the money. So they're going to the federal government for money. The CFIA is not going out there to cull those whales. Again, it's a different scenario, a completely different scenario. The whales don't have bird flu. The circumstances are completely different. It still comes down to the welfare of animals, and I'm not going to say animal rights, but the welfare of animals. But you're looking at two different scenarios, different issues, and even different government departments. So to sit there and conflate that, that's just a misdirection.
Going on?
Why are we so willing? Why are we so excited to kill? Yeah, and this is, again, we need a proactive government, not a reactive government, and this is reactive. And I think
I don't know about that. We've talked about that too. You can argue whether the cull approach is appropriate or not. This is about more than just the ostriches. This whole thing is an assault on government.
Need a proactive approach to how we address these problems, and we need true leadership to push that.
Now, do you feel like you have any allies, either legally or politically?
Yeah, the Trump administration.
The Trump administration. She's just confirming what I've been telling everyone for quite a while here now. This is a protest that is being fueled by foreign interests. She already mentioned John Catsimatidis, the owner of WABC Radio, the owner of the largest grocery store chain in New York State, purchaser of a lot of poultry for his grocery stores. It's about trade, international trade between the United States and Canada. It's about supply side management. It's about marketing boards. It's about tariffs. It's about foreign money. It's about oil. Catsimatidis, largest purchaser of Alberta oil, because he also owns a big oil refinery. So that one guy involved in this, and he's a big Trump supporter. He has a pro-Trump, basically, radio station at WABC. He has Trump administration officials on his radio station all the time. He's been interviewing her. He's offered to bankroll this thing on the legal side for her, for the farm. This is foreign interference. They really have no business sticking their nose in here, trying to affect or exert change, government policy change. We can handle that on our own. But what she's just said here is exactly what I've been saying. This is a protest being jacked up by a foreign interest, by a foreign government. Well, really, I don't know if it's so much if it's the government, but it's certainly the Trump administration, which right now is in power. Dr. Oz, RFK Jr., Catsimatidis, the Trump administration. She just told you that's where their allies are. And she's made a direct appeal to Trump. So you've got foreign interference politically in what is an extremely politically charged session of political theater out there. And it's becoming clearer by the day why we have so many police on scene out there, because this is being viewed by the government again as an existential threat.
Interesting. We've gotten way more support internationally than we have within our own government. It's taken 10 months to have our conservative government really come to the forefront and have Russ Dad speak on this. We had Mel Arnold. I want to give a shout out. I don't want to discredit Scott Anderson, our MP, has done an incredible job, really trying, but he's limited to his.
I also find it interesting that in the last week or two, the separatists' voices out there are really increasing their rhetoric and coming out to support this whole save our ostrich stuff too. It's just becoming blatantly obvious for anybody that chooses to see it, because it is right in your face. And she's telling you in this interview with Ezra, they're just laying it out for you, but they're like, oh my God, like, look how good these people are. They've got no business sticking their nose in here, especially when this is blatant hypocrisy, because the Trump administration sticking their nose in here, calling for an end to the cull policies in Canada to dismantle a government agency, the CFIA, while the same policies are still being employed in the United States, where over the past 6 months, I believe 30 million birds have been culled using the same basic policies that are in effect in Canada. But I don't see them protesting any of that.
Right.
On the
We've
US
had our
side.
MLAs, the independents, Dallas Brody, Tara Armstrong, and Jordan Keeley step up first in bringing this into the legislature, which was absolutely fantastic, and use their question. But again, you know, the independents get one question every 3 weeks. You know, why are they limited? And again, this just goes to show the hierarchy within the government levels. And we're protecting the Canadian Poultry Association. So the Canadian Poultry Association is so protected because of supply chain management that they are holding the master key to this. And that is wrong. We need to dismantle that as well.
Ah, you see, this is exactly what I've been telling you. Supply side management is really in place to protect smaller Canadian farm operations in the face of foreign large agribusiness. That's what supply management is about. It's to protect Canadian food sovereignty, so that big U.S. ag business, big U.S. agricultural corporations can't just come in here and run roughshod over Canadian farmers. Those provisions, those trade rules, even the tariffs, the way they're currently set up, are designed to protect smaller Canadian farmers. But she's telling you it's the opposite, that they're there, that all of that has to be dismantled, while she's telling you that she wants to protect small Canadian farmers, that they're fighting for the small farmers. It's actually the opposite. Whether she realizes it or not, maybe she doesn't understand how the economics on that works and how the trade relationships work. But we just have things set up in Canada. And it isn't even just the numbers. It's about non-tariff trade barriers too, related to supply chain management. I just had a friend just yesterday talking about this issue, saying, I don't eat chicken from the supermarket because it's full of hormones. All the Canadian chicken is full of hormones. It's not true. Actually, the use of hormones in Canadian chicken production is prohibited. And that's also because of international trade regulations, so that we can send our chickens to other countries. It's about making sure our chickens are not injected with vaccines, so that we're eating clean food. That's what those provisions are in place for. She just wants to get rid of it. So while she's thinking that it's going to result in more freedom for farmers, that we won't have as many rules, and therefore I don't know what she thinks it's going to make the food safer, it's actually the opposite. Everything here is upside down. It's very concerning.
And all levels of the same agricultural sector deserve the same amount of protection, not one area. And that goes with our cattle farmers, their dairy farmers, and all of our fresh produce farmers, and our backyard farms. It's, we're all up for culling. Yeah.
Last question. Thanks.
Not quite, not exactly, not for culling. No, each sector is handled differently. It depends on certain circumstances. That's not an accurate statement.
Thank you very much for talking with me. I heard earlier that the CBC was doing coverage that you found was unethical. Yeah. Are there any allies you have other than citizen journalists and independent media? Have you had any media in the mainstream or even over in other countries that you feel have championed your cause?
Absolutely. New York Post, Washington Post.
Oh, really?
We've had John Catsimatidis in the WABC radio station.
Yeah, the big billionaire guy with interests in, well, I just laid it out for you. Ag business, grocery stores, purchasing poultry. He has a vested interest in what happens with the poultry industry on both sides. And the Trump administration has been pushing for the dismantling of supply side management in Canada and, to go after our dairy industry in particular, and also poultry.
And everybody goes, they're so puzzled on how did you get connected with John Catsimatidis and how did this happen? And it's because he's a huge animal welfare advocate. Mm-hmm. And we developed that relationship through his booker.
And I've listened to some of those interviews, and a lot of the information that he conveys is again selective and not accurate. And he has just outright came up with some things that have been just straight up wrong with regard to this, but he's spinning a narrative
on his radio station for a few minutes, then that few minutes was another few minutes. That led into our relationship because we believe that these animals deserve the right to be tested. And
animals don't have rights, but property owners do.
He has an amazing, strong voice, but I would believe that it's the Trump administration.
And the welfare of animals is protected by limiting the rights of people so that you can't just abuse an animal. And that also goes for the CFIA on both sides.
No, where is PETA? Where are these animal activists? Because right now, I'd like to say that probably at this farm, we are the largest animal advocates in Canada, because we're using our voices to stand up for the animals that are being abused behind us.
And we heard yesterday in that leaked audio recording from the woman who went out there originally to help them manage their narrative and manage their social media and manage their PR political campaign, that end of it, that she explained to them, PETA will not come out there. The actual animal rights activists will not come out to that farm because it has been a meat production facility. They were selling the birds, slaughtering them, and selling them for food and for other products like ostrich oils and other things of that nature. Not to mention the experimentation that was going on out there into the COVID research and ejecting the animals. The animal rights groups, they're not going to be on board with that. Not unless, of course, you're giving them information that isn't complete. But if anybody that does any digging at all, you don't have to dig far because it's all out there, we'll find that out. So what is she doing here? She's trying to shame the animal rights groups into coming and joining with them. And that is the word that Dave Belinsky, the other co-owner of the farm, used in that leaked audio recording. He asked the PR woman, how do we shame the animal rights groups to come out here and help us? And she just explained, I said, why do you want to shame them? You could just ask. But she explained to them they won't, because this is a farm where the ostriches were being bred originally for food. And so such was the case there for over 25 years.
3 media you listed are all American. Mm-hmm. Has there been any mainstream support from Canadian media?
Yeah, so we've got coverage from CBC, CTV, and Global News.
But has it been fair?
I want to give a shout out to Global News. Global News has done a very fair, description of what's going on here. CTV, shame on you. CTV they will only get public statements from me at this point, and that is from our farm, because they went on to create the division, the oldest tool in the toolbox. So while we're fighting for such an amazing cause for Canadians, they were creating division with a group of 26 people from our local town and letting them film them and show that they're making statements like they're living near Chernobyl and living that, that they're in fear for their fear. We have been, you drive down.
So she's saying she won't talk to CTV because they spoke to other local residents who didn't like what was going on in their community. That's fair for CTV to go and talk to people who have an opposing point of view. So shame on CTV? No. CTV, the journalists who were out there working that story, did their job. They gave a voice to everyone, including her. That's what true journalism is about. It's not about helping someone just spin a narrative. That's not to say you just go along with everything if somebody's lying about something. If somebody's lying, you call that out. What is the population of Edgewood? I'm going to look it up. British Columbia. Population is 1,000,000 And the answer is, any guesses in the chat tonight? Fewer than 200. Under 200 people in the community out there. Did anybody guess? Anybody guess? Nobody did. Not yet. Not popping up on my side on the chat. Anyway, under 200 people. So if you have 26 people interviewed, and that's just 26 people who showed up and were willing to appear on camera to talk about it in a community of only like less than 200 people, that's a substantial number of people from the local community who have an opposing point of view. Don't you think that they deserve to have their voices heard as well as the people at the farm? I say so. But shame on CTV for giving a voice to the voiceless? No, I say good job. And the reason I say good job is because I haven't even seen those interviews with those people. I am very familiar, though, with the woman who had her house doused in gasoline and then came out screaming in terror as the person who threw gasoline all over her house, then threw gasoline on her and punched her in the face. And we showed you the security or the video footage of somebody who actually videotaped that at the time. Or not videotape, but had a video recording of it, which was turned over to police. We showed you the video of that. And the woman was in terror. And so tonight, what are we seeing with regard to that? Well, we know that police have indicated that, yes, the woman was assaulted. So it's not like that was faked. You could see that it actually happened. They're quite aware of it. At the time, of course, the freedom, I hate to even use that word, freedom group, the animal rights activists, whatever you call them, the people who are out there, the pro-ostrich, anti-cull people, whatever, they were like, it's not us. But now police have indicated that the person that they believe is responsible is associated with the protesters. Let me just, I just want to see what the latest is on that. Okay, so I don't know if they've actually named anybody in relation to charges. I know they're investigating still this alleged assault and attempted arson. 72-year-old woman. Just seeing if they've announced at this point tonight. No, see, they haven't. I don't think we've got formal charges at this point, and we don't have a name of a person who has been, of a person named as being responsible or even going to court over it. We saw a video of somebody dressed in black. I don't know what the truth is yet, other than I'm just conveying what the police have indicated from their investigation, saying their investigation indicates it is someone associated with the protest. Tonight, I'm seeing various posts online where a person is being named. I'm not going to name the person because I don't think any charges have been laid. And what I'm seeing is people on the anti-protest side, I don't know how to even describe these positions that people are taking on this. They're saying, yeah, that this person is from the protest group, and this is the person who it is, and they've been calling that out on social media. I've seen now a pro-ostrich or anti-cull, anti-government activist person prominent in the group coming out naming a person. A person has been involved in the protest out there, saying, yes, it was you, but we're condemning it, and you're not really one of us. And now they're saying that person because, of course, they don't want anything to do with it because it's bad PR. It messes up the narrative. So now, as we've seen so many times in the past, that person is now being accused of being a plant. A Fed. Because nobody, you can't be held accountable for that. You can't accept responsibility for the rhetoric that you've been employing out there, saying that the government is evil, that they're murdering these birds. We showed you video of people who maybe not as strong mentally or emotionally as they need to be to understand or put that into perspective, and so they've been actually saying things that call for violence, and that is not right. But rather than accept responsibility for the rhetoric that has been employed here, that has, let's face it, it has jacked people up, and it has even, I think, radicalized some people in ways that maybe the people using those words in that language didn't intend, but that has been the result. Oh, they can't accept responsibility. No, it's a Fed. So put it on the government. Who knows? I'm not naming the person. I'm not going to assign blame to anybody at this point because I'm not the cops. I can't conduct the investigation. The responsible thing to do here is wait. And so that's what I'm going to do before I name somebody. If police lay charges and a name is released, then we'll go with that information and we'll say, Mr. X has been charged with these offenses and will be appearing in court on this date. And Mr. X was part of this group or that group. And the only reason I say that the person was associated with the Freedom Group is because it's not what I'm saying. Police are saying that they have information indicating the person responsible for the assault, and it's clear there was an assault, is associated with the protesters. Live with it, man. Deal with it. Do something to make it better. Of course, the response has been, we don't want anything to do with you. At least for now. Let's face it, the cops are out there because they see a safety issue, because they see a possible threat. The government on the CFIA side is putting up all these barriers to obscure vision. They have Transport Canada has issued basically an order so that drones are not to be flown over the area where the ostriches are being kept. And it looks like they'll be culled there. They don't want the drones peering in because they don't want this thing live streamed. It's a PR nightmare. It's too real for most people to handle. We talked about it last night. The protesters, they want to show all of it. They want to show all the gratuitous violence. It's a show for them, an anti-government show to show how evil the government is. But the reality is animals are killed every day, including healthy animals. Someone said to me, texted me, they want the SPCA out there. Yeah. Okay. CFIA actually is bound by its own regulations and by federal even regulations and other regulations to make sure that whatever they do is done in a humane fashion. That includes culling, to make sure that when the animals are culled, that they are culled in a humane way. They have to follow those rules. A lot of people, they don't do that. They just do this and then. No, they follow the rules because believe you me, they would be held accountable if they didn't. As you can plainly see, they're under intense scrutiny right now. Once again, listen to the rhetoric here. Here's Katie again in another post. You want to know why the cops are out there? You want to know why the government feels threatened by all of this? You want to know why? Because of this, because of the language she's using, because this isn't just about the ostriches. This has become, and I heard scientist being interviewed on one of the television stations about this, who indicated that, it has become an anti-government protest out there. It isn't just about saving the ostriches. This is anti-government now. And he said, if the farm owners, or if any farm owner moving forward wanted to say, we will do whatever we can to quarantine our animals to mitigate the spread of the disease, I think we've got the presence of the bird flu out here, but we could stop this thing if we don't want our birds culled, so we will quarantine and follow all these rules and do whatever we have to do to make sure that everything is contained here. He said, I could get on board with that. That's what this scientist said. He said, but that's not what's happened out there, because the farm has not followed any of the rules from the beginning. And even after the bird flu was detected and they were given quarantine orders, when they were told to put up netting over the pond inside the pens to keep wildlife out and stop, maybe attracting ducks by throwing food on the ground around the pond, and put up netting so that the birds couldn't, wild birds couldn't get in. They never did any of it. Nothing. They didn't comply with anything at all. That's why they got additional fines. And he said, I could get on board if you were concerned about the cull practice, the policy, and you wanted to maybe work with a farm that was willing to take steps to make sure that the bird flu risk was mitigated. But he can't get on board with this, because they've just thumbed their nose at everything the government has done out there. And that's also the truth. They have not complied with anything, even before they were discovered, and then they were trying to hide what was going on. This is a show.
You've operated with excessive freedom and no accountability for 21 plus years under the stamping out policy.
Excessive freedom. The CFIA has, what does that mean? You've had excessive freedom. Too much freedom. Okay.
And this is time. It is time, Canada, that we see this organization fall to its knees and we repair, come up. We're going to build a brand new, incredible organization.
What? She's going to bring the CFIA to its knees, and they're going to build a brand new, incredible organization. First of all, she's not elected. She's not in office. I don't know that she speaks for other farmers. So this is an anti-government message, to be sure. You can agree with it or not, but if you're the government and you're hearing this, does that sound like someone who wants to work with you to make some changes? Now, she wants to bring the whole government department to its knees. How do you do that? Maybe by bringing the government? I don't know. You're going to destroy. That's like saying we're going to get rid of Revenue Canada, or we're going to bring the Department of Veterans Affairs to its knees. It's nonsensical to me to hear that. And then she's not in the government. So how are you going to rebuild a government department with a new organization if you're not in the government? You are a stakeholder. You're one farm. Because it's not about the ostriches and it's not about her farm. It's about a political movement and it's about foreign interference. How are you going to bring them all to their knees? You use words like that, government gets nervous, and then you get the reaction you have out there right now with hundreds of police cars out there because you're backing up those words with a show of force and a demonstration that is very theatrical.
That is going to protect you. It's going to protect your animals. It's going to protect your rights.
Will it? Will it protect my animals? I don't know if that's true either, especially when you have, unless you just don't believe that viruses exist, and there's some people out there who are in that camp. How is she going to protect my animals if I have animals, if there are no rules? She doesn't believe in rules. She doesn't follow the rules. So what rules are you going to put in place? Tell me that before I go out there and join your protest. What is it that you're going to give us? You're going to bring this government agency to its knees, and you're going to build up a better organization? Tell me, give me the details first before we burn everything to the ground, please.
And this organization is not going to hide. It is going to be transparent. It's going to be honest, and it's going to be truthful.
But she's lied already many times. So how can I even trust her?
It's going to be something that we can all be proud of. Shame on you, Canadian Food Inspection Agency. You just ripped one of our family members away from our family. You made her suffer. You tortured her. All in the name of what? What are you protecting?
The hen died. An ostrich died. Family member. Theatrics. Farmer. Crying. Distraught. Same farm that has been selling ostriches as meat. Did she cry every time they slaughtered an ostrich to send to market? I'm not buying it.
Your image, the fact that everybody's going to find out that these animals are healthy and you maybe made the wrong decision. I think it's time, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, maybe you step forward and you take some accountability. I know that it's time that us Canadians hold them accountable, and I know that that time is now. In Spirit's name, there is...
Spirit. Very spiritual. Just believe.
No more police tape for you to hide behind, and there is no more badges for you to hide behind. The Canadians know exactly who you are. Courtney Fotheringham, Troy Bork, President of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, Paul McKinnon. How about our Agricultural Minister, Heath MacDonald, that's allowing this to happen, and Mark Carney that won't talk about this? How about a country that has been demanding answers for 10 months? Testing.
A country demand? No, you've been asking. You've been demanding. They did test the animals. This is an assault on the system, and you're asking to be treated differently than everybody else. You've turned this into a media circus. You've trained all the cameras on what's going on out there. It's because of your actions and the actions of all the live streamers and the political activists and some of the irresponsible things that have been said. That's why you have all this taxpayer money being spent tonight on police services, on all this fencing and barriers, and we're told drone jammers, maybe. Yeah, why do they need those? Because your live streamers want the clicks, because they want to build their channels. We went over this again last night. It's a big show. They want to put on the show. This is reality social media. This is Trump TV. You're backed up by this, I would say, former reality TV star turned reality TV / social media producer. MAGA, Trump administration, your greatest ally. Foreign interference, foreign political interference. 51st staters, ostriches. It all dovetails.
It's time. It's time, Canadian Food Inspection Agency. You are evil.
Oh, man. You are evil. Evil. There's that word, eh? That's just another emotional word. They don't want you thinking rationally. They want you thinking emotionally. It's not about facts. It's about tugging at your heartstrings and appealing to your darker side to get you angry. It's powerful. It works. Look at the response. People say, oh, you've captured the imagination. I've seen interviews. You've captured the imagination of the public. More than that. A lot more than that in some cases. And we've seen the negative side of that. And if you've got somebody throwing gasoline on a house, regardless of which side it's coming from, and punching a woman in the face who lives next door to a media circus that's been choreographed, yeah, I want some cops out there. Yep. I absolutely want some cops out there. I totally understand why I don't like the taxpayer money being spent on it. But we also have to keep it in perspective. None of this would be happening with the cops on this scale if it wasn't for all the theatrics and all the drones. Keep in mind, too, that bird that died, they say it's because of the CFIA, or that there was a government, I think an RCMP drone that they say was flying overhead and scared the ostriches, and that ostrich ran into a fence and became injured. But they're not the only ones who've been flying a drone. At least one drone has been flying all the time on the protest side. And even though there is basically a no-fly zone for drones right now over the place, they've been still allowing that to happen. How do you know it wasn't that drone that scared the damn bird? If it even went down like that. The bird was injured before the CFIA took control of the property. And it's a bird. It's not a person. Perspective. It's a show. And just like we saw from the interview with the mayor in Portland and the police chief in Portland, keep in mind that social media focuses on one little thing. Those cameras right now are focused on one farm in the middle of nowhere, away from even the town of Edgewood, just on the edge of that, a city, like a community of less than 200, one farm. And they've turned that into Protest Central. This isn't just a protest. This is the front line of a battle. Just one skirmish related to the war, the tariff war, and this larger political assault on our country coming from the Trump administration. MAGA. A war on liberalism. Canada, because we have a liberal country described by people on that side, that arm of the MAGA movement, as communist. We're not a communist country. In the minds of some of the people over there, we are. Maybe even in the mind of Donald Trump. This is all about that. And this is something that's been playing out since even before Confederation. The constant push and pull, the threat of the U.S. against Canada, constantly our existence as a country, because the United States, especially since World War II, has grown into this giant Godzilla. And right now, as you've heard from the rhetoric coming from the president himself, they are interested in one thing: winning. It's America first, baby. He doesn't care about Canada at all. Well, maybe a little bit, but no, it's just going to win. It's not the Department of Defense, it's Department of War, which is to go on the offensive. They're going to be on the offensive. They're going to pick fights, I guess. They're going to just pick wars and go to war over there. They're at war with us right now, not in the conventional sense, but it's an economic war. And this is an attempt to, I hate to say it because I love the U.S. so much, and it isn't all of America, but this is an attempt to break up our country. And this is just the latest skirmish, one skirmish on that front. She tells you that. because the support for this skirmish on her side is coming from the United States, specifically from the Trump administration. Follow the money too. Like, start looking into the funding for where a lot of this stuff is coming from. Oil money, Alberta. They want that oil. Canada also has other things they want. Water. They want the geography, because of the strategic positioning of Canada vis-a-vis Russia in the north. They want access, passage through the Arctic. Canada. We hold all the cards. Trump just doesn't want us to know it. But it's on full display right now. Out in Edgewood, BC. If you choose to see it, it's right in your face. Interesting game. Tic-tac-toe, chess, war games. Word games. Insurrectionists, terrorists, patriots. Patriotic to whom? Traitors. With that, I'll leave you with this tonight from Maverick and the News Brothers. Trump traitors. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, back here on the Maverick News Channel on the flip side, 7 p.m.
Didn't pick this fight, but here it came. Now I wanna play in a traitor's game. They sell us out for a tax cut deal. Shake his hand while they rob and steal. They call us blind, they call us weak, but they're the ones on their knees to the thief. Wave our flag while they burn it down, marching to the sound of a tyrant's cry. Patriots, they're bought and sold. Trade our land for American gold. Singing his tune, dancing his way, but they'll cry for Canada when it's too late. Yeah. Trump traitors, selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. They talk real tough, but they bow real low, licking his boots while they put on a show. They chant his name, raise their fists up high, while the real ones fight to keep us alive. They don't fight fair, they twist the truth, say they're the future, but they kill the roots. They laugh now, but watch them run when the north wind howls and justice comes. Traitors, selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. One day soon the tide will turn, and traitors pay when the fires burn. No statues raised, no banners flown, just names in dust where the traitors roam. Selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. Trump traitors, Trump traitors.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.